Can a man who aspires to greater things live under the shadow of another? I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. Today, I wanted to talk about a graphic novel. As you saw in the introduction, I am back on that graphic novel manga grind. And today's story is part of a series that I am continuing, one that is about warriors with giant swords and also a vague amounts of homoeroticism. I am, of course, referring to Berserk Volume 8 by Kentaro Miura, which was published in 1993. I've talked about Miura at least 7 other times on this channel before, so I don't need to go into that great of detail. Just note that he wrote quite a bit of manga. He was a Japanese writer, and he not only did manga, but he also wrote for video games and TV shows, as well as he tried to adapt Berserk into a TV series. Fairly interesting writer, and I have absolutely fallen in love with the Berserk series. If you've been following along with my discussion of the series, it definitely comes off as a bit edgy at times, but if you look past that sort of edginess, you see that Miura has a lot of different points that he's trying to make, whether it be about dreams or ambitions or sort of existential despair, various things like that. Which I've been chatting about. But without further ado, let's talk about what we'll find in Volume 8. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So Berserk Volume 8 picks up where Volume 7 left off. The Band of the Hawk and the people of Midland have been fighting against a rival kingdom, and that kingdom, or this battle, isn't turning out so well for the Band of the Hawk. Both Guts and Casca are being besieged by Sir Boscoin and Adon, and Adon has hit or struck Casca with a sort of poisonous knife of sorts that is making her weary, and it's going to lead to her getting killed if nothing is done. But very fortunately, Guts and Casca manage to overwhelm Boscoin and Adon, which gets Guts some acclaim because Boscoin was a very well-regarded knight. So Guts is sort of moving up there in the world. And meanwhile, Griffith kills the rival kingdom's leader on the battlefield, which is also significant because the leader threatened to reveal their relationship that Griffith had with that leader, something a bit romantic. But Griffith was like, I don't really want rumors spreading about me, so I'm just going to kill you right here. And everyone in Midland is celebrating, as this means the war is very near to coming to an end. However, the Midland's queen is unhappy as she views Griffith as an unworthy outsider who threatens her own rule of this kingdom, and so she plans to have Griffith killed. This leads to a fancy celebration where everyone is celebrating Griffith being elevated to a general status, as well as the other leaders of the Band of the Hawk being given important positions in the kingdom. However, after Griffith is proclaimed a general, he drinks from a goblet and he collapses because it seems like Griffith was poisoned, which is alarming. The queen goes off and celebrates because it seems like she was able to deal with a potential threat in her eyes. But as we see, Guts deals with some of the traitors there, some of the people who were trying to plot to kill him. And Griffith also shows up and reveals that the poison didn't work as they had intended, and Griffith managed to survive. And so both Griffith and Guts managed to kill the queen and the plotters in a pretty harsh kind of way. And Griffith notes that Guts shouldn't tell anyone what has happened here. And they go back and celebrate with the other people of the Band of the Hawk, revealing that Griffith has been all right this whole time. And as Griffith is celebrating, Guts explains why he's leaving to the others, and just saying he can't live under Griffith's shadow, and that he has his own dreams now, and that Griffith, he's never going to obtain what he wants as long as he's under Griffith's leadership. Griffith has his dream, but Guts wants to do something on his own now. And the next day, everyone sees Guts off, but Griffith shows up and challenges Guts. He says, "You belong to me, and you will not leave unless you can defeat me." And thus, a fight ensues between Griffith and Guts, which is pretty cool, as you've seen through some of the art here. And Guts manages to beat Griffith in a way that suggests he just hurts his nerve, and so Griffith can't hold his sword. And Guts leaves, which Casca is sad about, because she has come to love Guts, it seems. And Guts likes Casca too, but again, he realizes he can't be with her because she'll always sort of have eyes for Griffith. And that's where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, this is a very good story. Much more, again, character-driven than in previous volumes, where it's more focused on the fights that take place. Although here there's quite a bit of introspection that takes place in addition to the various fights that you see. But one of the things that Miura is talking about, as he's been talking about quite a bit in the past couple volumes, is that of the dream. Griffith has expressed his thoughts on dreams and ambition before. He says that having a dream is important. He has his own dream to rise up and gain control of some type of kingdom, and that he doesn't really value anyone who doesn't have these lofty goals and dreams, or even any ambition. That those people who are without dreams, he just bowls over and doesn't take seriously, which I think Guts admires in a way. And Guts's entire reason for leaving is because he admires Griffith in his dream, but he can't exist in another's vision, as he says. There's a fascinating quote that I would like to read to you from this. But in order for him to aim so high, he has to always hone himself to the very limit. That's why there's no room at his side for the weak. But strangely, the more clear that becomes, the more dazzling he is in my eyes. And I've had enough of looking up at him from inside his dream. And that's a really fascinating quote, because it gets at the heart of why Guts wants to leave. Because it's not enough for him to, work with Griffith and maybe get the leftovers of whatever he's able to achieve. Guts wants to do something on his own. He wants to be parallel to Guts, on his side. He wants to be an equal to him in terms of swordplay, in terms of status, kind of a friend more than an underling of some sort, something like that. And as we see, it seems like Guts and Casca have a thing for one another, but as Guts seems to notice, he'll never have Casca's heart as long as he's not an equal to Griffith, because Casca likes Griffith, and she'll always have eyes for him as long as Guts is sort of beneath that position. But it also seems like Casca doesn't really care so much about that, and she comes to love Guts over time, but it seems like Guts has something to prove. But what's really fascinating about this is how it demonstrates Guts' progress since his suicidal youth. We saw a couple volumes in the past how Guts was just taking on all comers, challenging everyone, didn't really seem to care for his life because his upbringing was so harsh and all he knew was battle. He didn't really care if he died, and he was willing for that to happen. He didn't really have any aspirations, but ever since meeting Griffith, ever since joining the Band of the Hawk, he's had a support system. He's felt that love. He's seen what it means to want to achieve something, and so Guts has sort of risen up to have a dream for himself, which is very, very powerful and very beautiful, because you see that character progression, and now you're rooting for Guts even more here. Miura is also talking about reverence in this volume, which we've seen a little bit of that in previous volumes too, especially in the way that people view Griffith. The Band of the Hawk seems to idolize Griffith, and we see that a lot in sort of how they talk about him. especially with Casca. But we also see it in the art around here, sort of depicting Griffith's glory, making him look very regal and very heroic as he's saving the day, or even when people just want to note how wonderful he is. And so there's a lot of credit to be given to Miura for showing that reverence through the art, because I think that sometimes gets lost when with comic books and manga. But as I mentioned before, you see that also in Casca's love for Griffith and exactly what he means to her in terms of what she wants out of life, but also and how he kind of rescued her from her troubled upbringing, and now there's kind of a magnificence that she wants to be with him about. So allow me to read you another interesting quote from this. "It's strange, actually. I always think this when the battle is over and Griffith is surrounded by everyone cheering in victory, that he's somehow out of reach, that he exists somewhere far away, and it hurts." And you see how Casca feels about Griffith, kind of noticing, after he's won, there's a feeling of glory and everyone's surrounding him, and she can't really be with him. And then there's another interesting sort of element to this where you see like Guts glancing at Griffith and then glancing at Casca, and you see right there like the love that he might experience for Griffith, but also for Casca, and realizing, oh, I could never really have this woman that I seem to like because there's Griffith. So he's kind of realizing, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to leave and achieve something in order to obtain the love of this woman, or a love of a similar type of woman. So the art is really fascinating here, and I love how Miura is talking about sort of Guts and Casca and his glory and this reverence that they experience for Griffith here. And Griffith is destined for great things, as we can see through everything that's being said. But of course that reverence causes Guts to leave because, again, he wants that kind of reverence for himself. He wants not only others to see him in an elevated position and follow him and stuff like that, but there's also that sense of him wanting to be on that level personally, of wanting to feel that reverence in some way, and be able to see himself, because there's been a lot of self-doubt through this series on Guts' part. There's also political shenanigans which have started popping up more and more in this series, specifically with people trying to poison Griffith, the Queen and their followers trying to poison Griffith, and Guts murdering people in secret in order to protect Griffith in some way. All of this is being done to elevate Griffith so that he can rise to a position of power and maybe even the throne in the end. And then you also see how Griffith is kind of manipulating Princess Charlotte, or maybe not so much manipulating, but trying to organize things so that she falls for him or they end up together, so that he can have a position of power and, again, maybe one day assume the throne or something like that. So a lot of political stuff happening, which makes this series pretty a little bit more interesting, I would say. And then there's other interesting things as well. There's a quote that Griffith says in this specific volume, where he's talking to the Queen, and the Queen is saying Griffith is saying that, oh, you think there are no noble people on the battlefield or anything like that. But no, there are noble people, but it doesn't even matter what you are, because it's the people on the battlefield, there are no innocents. They are the defeated who die. So what Griffith is saying there, in his kind of Machiavellian, sort of horrendous kind of way, is that there's no innocents on the battlefield. The only people you see on the battlefield are the defeated. Anyone who was on the battlefield belonged to be on, or should have been on the battlefield, and that if they die, that's just what happens to them. Kind of getting more and more about how Griffith doesn't seem to care about the ambitionless, and that anyone who dies is just in his path. it's unfortunate, but he doesn't feel bad about it. So it's a very kind of harsh line, but it definitely reveals more about Griffith. And then the last thing to note about this particular volume is the homoeroticism in it. There's quite a bit of it, which you see throughout the series, but it's especially more prevalent here because, as Guts is trying to leave, Griffith says, like, I told you before, you belong to me. And you could argue that this is just Griffith being overly brotherly or overly friendly and just wanting to maintain control of a very powerful warrior. But no, I feel like this is Griffith, trying to maintain control of somebody that he loves on some level. And what's more is as he's preparing to fight Guts, he says, if I can't have him, or at least thinks if I can't have him, nobody else will. So Griffith is kind of obsessive, but also there's a romance there that's unspoken that Miura is trying to get at. And I don't think it's when you gay baiting or anything like that. I think Miura is writing, how two very close people would be on the battlefield, and what kind of person Griffith is, and it doesn't matter gay, straight, or anything. Griffith likes who he likes, and so there is some element of homoeroticism which is very prevalent in this series, which is good to note. It's always important to note when these kind of romances are struck up and what authors are exactly trying to say about it. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Volume 8 of Berserk, a pretty stellar entry into an otherwise amazing series, still amazing and whatnot. I particularly like the art in this installment, as how Miura is expressing the emotions that Guts is feeling and why he needs to leave. It's pretty fascinating, and so I definitely think it's worth checking out. It's important to read the entire series first, but I think this is a standout volume of the series, and I can't wait to read even more as I go along. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, or if you just have something to say about my review here. Would love to discuss this with you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you aren't familiar, or if people aren't familiar with the author or the series, they can find out more about that. And also join the Discord if you want to have further conversations about this manga or other mangas, or just books or movies or whatnot in general. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and aspirational travels. Farewell.